Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you've ever wrestled with website speeds, you've probably run into this question. Should you disable lazy loading on your WordPress site?
It's a tough one, right? Always weighing the options.
Absolutely. First things first. For anyone who's new to the whole WordPress world, it's a super popular platform that basically lets you build a website without needing to be a coding genius. And lazy loading, well, think of it like those never-ending social media feeds, where new posts just appear as you scroll. It's that, but for images and videos on your site, they only load when you scroll down close to them, which sounds pretty awesome for speed, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Makes sense in theory, especially for sites with a ton of visuals.
hmm
But here's the kicker. Sometimes lazy loading kind of trips itself up and creates a bunch of problems.
Which is what we're diving into today.
Like
We've
that.
got a great article from Now Technology Systems, an Australian company that's all about helping small businesses build amazing websites. So their advice is super relevant for anyone down under, but the core ideas apply no matter where you are.
What I find interesting is the article's focus on user experience. It's so easy to get caught up in making a site lightning fast that we forget about the actual humans using it. They point out how lazy loading can actually make things slower if it's not done right.
And then there's the dreaded bounce rate. That's when people land on your site and immediately hit the back button. Slow loading images, thanks to lazy loading, could totally send your bounce rate skyrocketing.
And it gets even more complex when you factor in SEO, which is how Google finds and ranks your website. If Google can't see your images right away because they're lazy loaded, well, your ranking can take a hit, meaning fewer people find your site.
Okay, so maybe lazy loading isn't the cure-all we thought it was. What's fixed then? Just shut it off completely.
Well, not always. The article suggests a couple of approaches. First, there's what they call easy mode plugins.
Plugins, so that's like little add-ons for your WordPress site, right? Giving it extra powers.
Exactly.
I love how simple that sounds. Is it seriously as easy as searching for a plugin and clicking install?
Pretty much. Search for Disable Lazy Load in the WordPress plugin directory. You'll find a ton of options. Find one with good reviews, install it, activate, bam, lazy loading's gone. No coding required.
That's definitely my speed. But then if it's that easy, why would anyone bother with the alternative?
That's where things get a bit more hands-on. The article calls it Code Warrior Mode, and it involves tinkering with your website's code, specifically adding a snippet to your WordPress theme's functions.php file.
Code. I'm already feeling a little lost. What does that code actually do?
I know it can look intimidating if you're not used to it,
Hmm.
but basically it tells WordPress to ignore its default lazy loading behavior. The article actually provides the exact code you'd use.
All right, lay it on me. Let's see what this Code Warrior stuff looks like.
Okay, here it is.
Oh boy. High school computer science class is coming back to haunt me. The plugin solution is looking more and more tempting.
I hear you. But the article makes a good point, that some folks prefer having that direct control over the code. Just remember, if you're going this route, back up your functions.php file before you change anything. One wrong keystroke, and your website could go kaput.
Noted. Okay, so let's say we've managed to disable lazy loading, either by embracing the easy way or channeling our inner code warrior. How do we know for sure it actually worked?
You don't want to just assume everything's fine and dandy. Testing is key.
Testing? You mean like just refreshing my website a bunch of times?
Kinda. You want to check your website on different web browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and on different devices, your phone, tablet, and computer.
Yeah.
If those images are still taking forever to load, lazy loading might not be totally gone.
Makes sense. Got to check your outfit in different mirrors, right? Make sure you look good from all angles.
Exactly. And there's a super handy tool called Google PageSpeed Insights. Gives you a detailed report on your website's performance, including how well your images are loading. Great way to double-check you've tamed the lazy loading beast.
Okay, adding that to my website toolkit. But here's a thought. We've talked a lot about disabling lazy loading, but is that always the right answer?
That's where it gets really interesting. The article suggests that sometimes instead of shutting lazy loading down completely, you might just need to tweak it a bit.
Tweak it. Now I'm intrigued. What kind of tweaking are we talking about?
Well, certain WordPress plugins let you customize which pages on your site actually use lazy loading. You can pick and choose where you want it on and where you need those images to appear instantly.
That's pretty slick. So it's not all or nothing. You can have the best of both worlds speed when you need it and instant image loading where it really matters.
Exactly. And that brings us to a point the article really hammers home, keep those updates coming. WordPress plugins and themes are always evolving. What works today might not work tomorrow.
Stay informed, stay curious, never stop learning, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So we've covered a ton here. We know what lazy loading is, why it can be both helpful and a headache, and some ways to disable it or tweak it to our liking.
And like with most things in web development, there's no magic bullet. It's about understanding the nuances and figuring out what works best for your website and your audience.
That's the beauty of these deep dives. We get to really dig into a topic, explore the pros and cons, and ultimately help you make smart decisions about your website. But before we jump into other optimization strategies, I've got a final thought for you to ponder.
Hit me with it. What's the brain teaser today?
If lazy loading is all about striking that balance between website speed and user experience, what are some other ways you can optimize your website to achieve that perfect harmony?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm already thinking of all the possibilities, like a constantly moving target, right? You solve one thing and another pops up.
Totally. The eternal quest for the perfectly optimized website. Fast, but also user-friendly.
And that's where this article's focus on Australian businesses is spot on. They highlight how important local context is. Internet speed's very audience needs differ. It's not just about global SEO. It's about connecting with your audience on their terms.
Right. What works for a tech company in Silicon Valley might not be the best approach for a bakery in rural Australia.
Exactly. So for all the small business owners listening, experiment. Try lazy loading. See how it impacts your site speed and your visitor's experience. If it's not working, don't be afraid to switch things up.
Love that. Embrace the experimentation mindset. Now, I'm curious about those other optimization strategies you mentioned. Besides lazy loading, how else can we give our websites a speed boost?
Let's start with something we touched on earlier, image optimization. Even if you disable lazy loading, those image files can still be huge, which drags down your site speed.
Like trying to stuff a moving truck full of furniture onto a tiny ferry? Not going to work.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And the solution is compressing those images before uploading them to your site, like packing a suitcase neatly so you can fit more in.
And there are tons of free tools online that can help you shrink those image file sizes without sacrificing quality. Win-win.
And speaking of wins, let's talk caching.
Caching sounds a bit technical.
It is, but not as complicated as it sounds. Imagine ordering takeout from your favorite place. The first time, it takes a while because they got to make everything from scratch. But the next time you order the same thing, they might have some of it prepped because they know what you like.
So it's like a shortcut for frequently accessed information.
Exactly. In websites, caching stores temporary copies of your site's files on the user's browser. So when they visit again, it loads much faster because it doesn't have to fetch everything all over again.
Like having a mini version of your website stored right on their device.
Precisely. And the best part is there are plugins that handle caching automatically. Install it, and it does all the work behind the scenes.
Speaking of plugins, I've heard there are plugins for like every website optimization trick under the sun.
True. There are plugins that minify your code, which basically strips out all the unnecessary spaces and comments to make the code smaller and faster to load. There are plugins that optimize your database. It's like cleaning out your closet to get rid of clutter. Amazing how much you can achieve with just a few plugins.
Like having a team of tiny robots working 24/7 to keep your website running smoothly.
Now, beyond the technical tweaks, let's not forget good old-fashioned content optimization.
Yes, content is king.
It really is. No matter how fast your site loads, if your content is confusing, boring, or hard to read, people will bounce.
So how do we make our content shine?
Clarity is key. Write in a way that's easy to understand. Use headings and subheadings to break up long blocks of text and incorporate bullet points or numbered lists to highlight key information.
Like giving your readers a roadmap to easily navigate your content.
Exactly. And don't forget keywords. The words and phrases people use when searching online. Make sure you're using relevant keywords in your content so Google can understand what your site is about and rank it accordingly.
But content optimization isn't just about pleasing Google, right? It's about creating an enjoyable experience for actual humans.
Absolutely. If your content is a joy to read, people will spend more time on your site, engage with your brand, and ultimately be more likely to become customers.
It's about finding that balance appealing to both search engines and real people.
And speaking of balance, let's shift gears for a moment and talk user experience, or UX.
UX. That's a hot topic these days.
For good reason. All these optimization efforts are pointless if your website isn't user-friendly.
Right, because what's the point of a lightning-fast website if no one can figure out how to use it?
Imagine a restaurant with amazing food but terrible service. You might enjoy the meal, but the whole experience is ruined by the frustrating service.
Great analogy. So how do we make sure our websites are serving up a delightful user experience?
Starts with navigation. Make sure it's easy for people to find what they're looking for on your website. Clear and intuitive menu, prominent and functional search bar, logical and easy to follow website structure.
Like clear signage in a shopping mall. You want people to find the stores they're looking for without getting lost or frustrated.
Then there's readability. We talked about content optimization, but it's worth repeating. Make your content easy to read, legible font, break up long paragraphs, use visuals to add interest and break up the text.
I've been on websites where the text is so small and crammed together that it gives me a headache just trying to read it.
And finally, don't forget calls to action. Those buttons or links that encourage people to take a specific action, like signing up for your newsletter, making a purchase, or contacting you. Make sure your calls to action are clear, concise, and compelling.
Like a friendly salesperson guiding your customers through the buying process.
So to sum up, user experience is all about making your website easy to navigate, easy to read, and easy to take action on. If you nail those three things, you're well on your way to creating a website that people will love.
And a website people love is a website that's going to perform well, both in terms of user engagement and search engine rankings.
Absolutely. And we've covered a lot, from lazy loading and image optimization to caching plugins, content optimization, and user experience. It's been quite the optimization adventure.
It has. And before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. Remember how we were talking about customizing lazy loading on specific pages? The article mentioned it but didn't go into detail.
Yes, I remember that. Definitely piqued my interest.
Me too. Imagine fine-tuning lazy loading page by page. You could really dial in that perfect balance between speed and user experience. Like maybe you have a landing page with a crucial image that needs to load right away, but on your blog posts, lazy loading wouldn't be as big of a deal.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And I wonder if certain page builders like Elementor or Beaver Builder might offer even more customization options for lazy loading.
Definitely worth exploring. Maybe we'll need a whole separate deep dive just on customizing lazy loading. But for now, I'm curious. Have any of our listeners experimented with customizing lazy loading on specific pages? What plugins or methods have you found success with? We'd love to hear your insights.
And remember, every website is different. So what works for one might not work for another. The key is to keep experimenting and learning to find what's best for your individual needs.
It really drives home the point that website optimization isn't just some technical to-do list.
It's about the big picture. Like the article said, Australian businesses face unique challenges. It's not just about ticking off global SEO boxes. It's about connecting with your audience in a way that works for them.
You know what I mean? Even something as basic as page loading speed can be affected by where your visitors are. What kind of internet connections are they using?
Right, and then you add in things like what plugins and themes you're using, the type of content you have, is it mostly images or text? It all adds another layer of complexity.
And that's what makes these deep dives so cool. We're not just giving you generic advice. We're giving you the knowledge to become a website optimization wizard.
And that's the key takeaway here. There's always something new to learn. This article's been a great starting point, but it's just the beginning.
Speaking of starting points, now Technology Systems did mention they offer a bunch of services for Australian businesses. SEO video production. Maybe that's something worth checking out if you want expert help.
Could be a good option, especially if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, or just want the peace of mind knowing someone else is handling the technical stuff.
But even if you go that route, having this foundational knowledge from our deep dive will make you a smarter client. You'll be able to ask the right questions, understand the process, really get your money's worth.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right? And that's especially true in the world of web development where things change so fast.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. If lazy loading is all about that balance between speed and user experience, what's one small change you can make on your website today to improve one or both of those things?
Doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. Even a tiny tweak can make a difference.
Could be compressing an image, trying out a caching plugin, maybe even just rewriting a call to action to make it more punchy.
Whatever it is, take that first step. And remember, every improvement counts.
And on that note, we're signing off for today. Happy optimizing, everyone.